Hi there, my name's Nora. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm super excited to be talking to you. I haven't filmed in a little bit. I was out hiking the West Highland Way and then I've been posting a lot of videos from that trip, so I haven't actually been in front of the camera in a couple weeks, and I missed you all. I'm excited to talk. Today I'm going to be talking about the West Highland Way. This is meant to be a full, comprehensive guide to give you hopefully everything that you need to know to hike the trail and to have it be an amazing experience. So I'm going to divide it up by chapters, and you can always check the chapter at the bottom of the video to skip to the part that you specifically want advice on. But super excited, so let's get into it. So the West Highland Way is a 96-mile long distance through hike that travels from a suburb of Glasgow in Scotland all the way up to Fort William, which is in the Scottish Highlands. It travels through 3 different types of terrain. There's the countryside and the farms and the fields right outside of Glasgow. And then there's Loch Lomond, which is a beautiful lake in the region. And then you spend the remainder of the time hiking through the Scottish Highlands. It is usually completed in 5 to 10 days. We'll get into that in a second. And there's a variety of different lodging routes along the trail. It was established in 1980, so it's in the grand scheme of things, relatively newer through hike. And it is the most popular hiking trail in Scotland, and about 100,000 people complete it each year, mostly in the months of June, July, and August. I hiked it in April, so all the videos that I show you will be from that time, but the most common months to hike it are May and September. I talked to locals while I was hiking it, like different business and restaurant owners, and they said that May and September are the times of the year when the crowds get kind of, not bad, but definite crowds. Okay, so who is the West Highland Way for? In my personal opinion, this is a great trail for both beginners and experienced thru hikers. There's so many different types of the trail that make it really accessible. It's always near towns, it's not too long, you can camp, you can stay in hotels. It's not too difficult, you don't have to have any technical experience, but it is a lot of walking. 20 miles in, we have 16 miles on deck, and we are like 20 miles in, really starting to hurt. Feet are definitely starting to hurt. So I think definite beginners can do it, but I wouldn't go out there without any sort of training at all. And I'll get into training a little bit later in the video. And like I said, I was new to thru hiking, so I didn't necessarily have a ton of experience navigating everything. And I was actually super worried and stressed about maps. I was so worried that I was just not gonna know where I was going. And I didn't need to worry at all. The West Highland Way is super easy to navigate. There's like very clear signage and directions and all that good stuff. If you're like me and you tend to run a little bit more on the anxious side, I would highly, highly recommend the app Far Out. This was an app that you can download for free, and then buying different maps costs money. But this app was amazing. So it showed exactly where you were on the trail each day. It also showed elevation gains, so you could know kind of what was ahead of you at the end of the day. And there's also various different viewpoints along the way, and water sources and lodging. And you can click on them and then specifically see like, okay, how far am I from this waterfall? Or how far am I from lodging tonight? And it worked great. We had no service out there, and it was not an issue because we both had Far Out and we knew that we would be able to find the trail. But overall, the trail is really well marked. I don't think GPS, actually, I would take that back. I think GPS is a good thing and a good idea to have. So like I said, most people complete the hike in 5 to 10 days. We did it in 6. And that was mainly due to time restraints. I'm a teacher and I only had a week off for the Easter holiday. Most people, I would say, did it in 7 to 8, and I think that's definitely the sweet spot. So I'm gonna run through right now different 6-day itineraries, which is what we did, and then a 7-day itinerary, which is the more common route. The really cool thing about the West Highland Way is that there's so many small towns. If you want to split this up into like a 14-day hike and just drink in pubs all afternoon, you definitely can. So this is what we did, and I'll also include the mileage. There's a wide variety in how you plan this out though. So if your booking in one town is full, you absolutely can stay at like a town further back or a town further on. There's definite flexibility. Also, so sorry. I know people are gonna say stuff in the comments. I'm so sorry for mispronouncing these. I'm trying my very best as an American. Okay, but you're starting off in Milingay and you're going to Balmaha. That's day 1. And then day 2 is Balmaha to Inversnaid. Day 3, Inversnaid to Crianlark. Day 4, Crianlark to Bridge of Orchy. This is the shortest day, and there's definitely some wiggle room and flexibility because Bridge of Orchy is a super small town. Day 5, Bridge of Orchy to Kinlochleven. That is a massive day. That was the longest day of the hike and includes Devil's Staircase, which I'll get into in a second. And then day 6, Kinlochleven to Fort William. There's very little on that last stretch between Kinlochleven and Fort William. So it's about 16 miles, and most people that I knew that were hiking the trail just did all of that in one stretch. Now for the 7-day itinerary. For the 7-day itinerary, you're gonna split up Bridge of Orchy to Kinlochleven and King's House or Glencoe. So the 7-day itinerary would be Milingay to Balmaha, Balmaha to Inversnaid, Inversnaid to Crianlark, Crianlark to Bridge of Orchy, Bridge of Orchy to King's House or Glencoe. They're like right next to each other. King's House or Glencoe to Kinlochleven, and then Kinlochleven to Fort William. If I had the whole trail to do over again, I would probably do the 7-day itinerary versus the 6-day itinerary. It's just a lot. It's a lot of hiking, and honestly, it's so beautiful that you kind of want to stretch it out. So that would be my advice. But those are definitely the main routes that I would follow, and that you can't really avoid those towns. Those towns are probably where you're going to be staying, and they have varying different levels of accommodations and resources. So some places like Bridge of Orchy or Inversnaid only have like a hotel and a restaurant and a bunkhouse. But some places like Crianlark or Kinlochleven, they're actually towns. So they have supermarkets, grocery stores, bars, multiple restaurants, all of that stuff. And that leads us into accommodations and lodging, which is definitely the area where you can be the most creative on your West Highland Way journey, and it's important to kind of walk through all the different options. So there's 4 different ways that you can sleep on the West Highland Way, and I'm gonna run through each of them. This is in order from the least expensive to the most expensive. So number 1, cheapest option in total because it's free, is wild camping. So Scotland has wild camping laws, which basically means as long as you're not directly on private property and as long as you clean up after yourself, you can pretty much sleep wherever. This was definitely true on the West Highland Way, except for around the Loch Lomond section, so definitely do your research about that. But this is totally free because it's backpacking. You won't have showers, you won't have bathrooms, you'll have to get your own water and food, and you'll have to carry everything on your back, but it's totally free. So it's also great because if you are booking this trip kind of last minute, you don't have to have any reservations in advance because you will be finding where you're staying the night of. So definitely recommend wild camping if you are on a budget, if you are on a time crunch, or if you just want the adventure of backpacking for 8 days in the Scottish Highlands. But the wild camping is really cool. It definitely makes it super accessible. And we found when we were on the trail, it was about 50-50 people camping versus people staying in hotels or bunkhouses. The next, slightly more expensive option, but still pretty cheap, is staying at designated campgrounds along the way. There's lots of campgrounds, and this can be nice because you know that you have a spot, you know that there's bathrooms, showers, running water, other people around to talk to, and you know that you have a set spot. You don't have to go hunting for a campsite or like a good spot to have your tent. These definitely sell out in advance though, but they are still pretty cheap. Like you are still providing your resources, you are still camping. A lot of them also have little camp stores, so that's handy as well. But yeah, this is a great option if you want to camp, but you don't necessarily want to backpack. Like you want to camp, but you also want restaurants and showers and all that good stuff. This was really, really common on the trail. We saw a lot of people that went kind of some variety of wild camping versus campsites versus staying in like bunkhouses a couple nights. So this is definitely a cheaper option. It does give you a little bit less flexibility though, with how long you want to hike each day. Next up is the third option, which is staying in hostels or bunkhouses. This is what my friend and I did. We did not camp. If I had it to do over, I might camp, but this worked out pretty well for us. So hostels are essentially big rooms where there are a lot of different beds. So you will probably be staying with people that are not necessarily in your group, but you'll be meeting people and talking to people, and you'll have a warm bed, and you'll have amenities and showers and different things like that. And because they're not private, bunkhouses and hostels tend to be a little bit cheaper than hotels. So we found this to be like a pretty good even ground. The average price for one of ours was, I think, probably like 60 pounds. So not cheap, but not as expensive as hotel rooms would be. I also want to take this time to plug the West Highland Way Sleeper. This is the coolest hostel I've ever stayed in. It was in an abandoned train station. Might I also add active train station. There were trains that went by in the middle of the night. But it was an abandoned train station that got turned into a hostel. And it was just phenomenal. It was really cheap and honestly the most memorable lodging experience that I've ever had. So that is in Bridge of Orkney. I highly recommend looking into it. It sells out pretty far in advance. You definitely have to book it before you go on your trip, but that's a great experience. And then the last way that you can hike the West Highland Way and arrange your sleeping accommodations is staying in hotels. There are some very, very nice hotels along the way. I would say every single town had some sort of inn or guest house or B&B, and they were beautiful. They were really stunning. A lot of them also provided meals, but they are the most expensive option. So depending on how much money you're willing to expend, if you want that extra comfort, even though it's pretty rural, it's definitely available out there. The one thing I'll say though is that things do sell out pretty far in advance. So if you are thinking about staying in accommodations like that, definitely book them further in advance. Okay, next up we have some packing advice, and I waited to the packing section to talk about luggage transfer. So basically the way that luggage transfer works on the West Highland Way is a specific company will take your bags for you. So you don't have to hike with everything on your back. You just have to hike with a day pack, and then you give the luggage transfer company basically your itinerary, and they take your bags each day. This was very common. I would say that like 80% of the people that we met that were not camping on the West Highland Way, that were staying in hostels or bunkhouses, were using luggage transfer. It's very, very common. There are tons of companies. We heard pretty good things about all of them. Like, I don't think I talked to anyone who ended up losing their luggage, but this can be great because it'll determine what you pack. If you're not carrying everything you need for the trip, like on your back, you can probably pack a little bit more. We did not do luggage transfer because we're on a bit of a budget, but it's definitely a good option if like you don't want to carry a ton, or you just don't want to have to restrict what you pack. If you are backpacking or camping or not using luggage transfer, you do have to be a little bit more careful. Obviously, if you're camping, bringing in the camping gear, I would definitely recommend bringing rain jacket or some sort of way to cover yourself. We didn't have rain jackets, we had ponchos, which while they looked absolutely ridiculous, were so handy and our stuff stayed really dry and the ponchos were super cheap. But everyone along the trail had a rain jacket or like a rain fly for their bag. So no matter what you bring or no matter how you're doing the trail, definitely bring rain gear. It's Scotland. No matter what time of year you go, it's going to rain. The other thing that I would definitely recommend bringing is some sort of warm layer. We went in April and I was really naive and thought that it wouldn't actually be that cold. That was dumb of me. It was really cold. There were times where I was really chilly, and I definitely would recommend some sort of lightweight jacket that just packs down easily. Can be really helpful. Also, depending on what time of year you go, midges, which are like small mosquitoes, can be difficult, so thinking about that as well. Okay, now getting into food. So one of the reasons why I really like this trail is because there was always lunch. Like, I don't know how we planned it that way, but every single time we were thinking, okay, like we're kind of hungry, it would be nice to have a place to stop for lunch, a place magically appeared. There's some really good food along the West Highland Way. So food and drink were not an issue at all. We just packed snacks, and then most of the meals we just had out, / our accommodations provided breakfast for us some days, which is really cool. Two places that I really recommend stopping at along the trail. The first one is Turn Up the Beat. You will do this on day 1. It's right after the distillery. It's so fun. Right along the trail. You don't have to go out of any way. You don't have to go out of the way at all. And it's really yummy. They shout out to their vegan sausage rolls. Those were great. And then the other food recommendation is a little bit further along the trail. When you're in Tindrum, definitely stop at the Green Welly. It's a classic West Highland Way stop. So funny, lots of tourists. It's just great. It's quirky. It'll have everything you need. There's also an outdoor store there, and the food's pretty good as well. Another thing that people have asked me a lot about is water. So we brought water filters and never ended up using them. We had 2 water bottles amongst 2 people, so we each had 2, and it was really easy to find water. We either filled up at like various restaurants or cafes along the way, or there were just water fountains at some places. So we brought the water filters, and I would recommend you do that as well, but finding water was never an issue. And another thing that came up a lot was getting to the starting line and then getting out of Fort William. If you are someone that also stresses about those little logistics, welcome. You're in a safe space. But this is a really cool trail because it's really easy. So the starting point of the West Highland Way is in a suburb of Glasgow. We stayed in Glasgow Center, like proper Glasgow, and just at the start of the trail took an Uber, and it was really easy. The Uber driver knew where the start of the trail was, and that was really, really quick. It's like 30 minutes outside of city center. So you can just get an Uber to the trail. If you want, you can stay in a hotel in that suburb. That'll probably allow you to sleep in a little bit more on the first day. But honestly, the lodging options there were really expensive because I think they know that a lot of people want to be hiking. And then hiking all the way to Fort William, getting out of Fort William, we just took the train. Fort William's pretty big. There's definitely lots of different transportation options. The cool thing about the train is if you take it, you'll be going directly back the way you hiked. And while it is a little humbling to go on a 4-hour train ride, something that took you 6 to 7 days to hike, it is very, very convenient and also really cool because you get to go look back at different memories that you had along the way or additional things that you got to see, and seeing it from the perspective of a person riding a train versus a hiker. So that was really cool. It will also definitely make you a little bit emotional. The train ride was kind of sad because it really was sinking in at that point that it was the end of the adventure. A couple other things just random that came up are if you have to have a permit to hike the West Highland Way. As far as I know, no, you do not. If that is incorrect information, please put it in the comments to inform me as well. And the other question was about budgeting. As you saw earlier when we were talking about lodging, there's like so many different ways you can do this. So it's tricky to make one definitive statement about money, but I will say it can be done pretty cheap. Like if your budget is $500 or less, you can easily do that. My friend and I had a slightly bigger budget, especially because we were flying over from the United States. So that changed some things. We ended up spending, I think each of us, about $1,500, including flights. And our flights were like $700 or $800, so they were expensive. But we spent about $1,500 in total, which for a full week-long trip and a pretty epic adventure was 100% worth it. There are so many ways we could have done it cheaper though. Like we could have cooked meals, we could have packed lunches, that added up so much. We could have not had drinks along the trail. We could have stayed in campsites a couple of the nights. There are definitely ways that we could have done it cheaper. So if you are hearing that number and you're like, I can't do that, there are ways to make it less expensive. Another question is about the best time to hike. Like I said earlier, we hiked this trail in April and it was a little cold, but there were very few crowds, which was nice. May and September are the most popular times and those probably have the best weather. June, July, and August are very nice weather, but you also have to deal with midges. Midges are kind of like mosquitoes. They're very annoying. They fly around your face. They can really ruin a trip if you don't properly prepare for them. We had no issues with midges in April, and I was talking to some of the locals there, and I think the midges really do pick up in the warmer summer months. So if you're going in the summer and the thought of that just sounds horrible to you, make sure that you pack appropriate gear and bug spray and all of that stuff. But I imagine September, once the busy season has passed and things have calmed down a little bit, but the weather is still nice, would be an absolutely beautiful time to go. And I definitely plan on hiking the West Highland Way again, and I'm gonna try to go in September. And then there's fitness and training. I did virtually no training to prepare for this trip. I wish I had done a little bit more. The one thing that I did was I went on several long walks in my neighborhood where I would literally pack up my backpack, put on my hiking shoes, wear my exact hiking outfits, and just go out and walk like 17 or 18 miles. It's not difficult walking. The hardest part is walking for that long. I would definitely recommend before you go on the trip, make sure your shoes are good. Like go to an outdoor store, have them fit you for shoes, get their advice, get the proper socks. Far and away, the most pain that I saw people in on the trail was because of foot-related problems and blisters. So trying to mitigate that as much as possible by A, practicing, doing long walks and getting your body used to that, and then B, having proper footwear. So definitely make sure you have those covered. Otherwise, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm just like a naturally active person. If you are not, maybe doing some more additional training can help. But I think the thing that helped me the most was the long walks, mainly my mind. Like it can be kind of trippy sometimes to walk for a really long time, and that helped me sort everything out in my brain. And then viewpoints. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about. 3 viewpoints I want you to make sure you do not miss. The first is Conic Hill. Stunning, beautiful, amazing, no notes. You know the vibe. It's absolutely great. It's a detour, so it is like kind of going off the trail for a second, but then it loops back on really nice. Definitely do the Conic Hill. That's a famous viewpoint in Scotland. Okay, the other famous viewpoint is right along the trail. It's basically part of the trail, but it was amazing. I had a spiritual moment there, so I'm gonna tell you all about it. And that is the mountains right before you get into Glencoe. So this will probably happen day 5 or 6 of the hike. They were just stunning. They were so pretty. You got up so close to them and there was no one else around. It was just the trail. You couldn't access them except by the West Highland Way, and they were so stunning. When we went, there was still a little bit of snow on them, and they just took my breath away. They made me really realize how blessed I am to be able to hike and how amazing it was that my body had taken me like 75 miles at that point. So highly recommend those. And then the last one, you hate to see it coming, is the view from the top of Devil's Staircase. Oh, so good. Devil's Staircase is hard, no denying that. It went a lot quicker than I thought it would go because I was dreading it the entire trip. Like I was so scared about Devil's Staircase being super hard because it happens really late in the hike and you hear about it from day 1. It's not that bad. It's steep, you'll be fine, just take breaks. And the view at the top was really stunning. You could see the whole valley down that you had just hiked. So highly recommend that. And final question, or just thing that I wanted to talk about, was safety, particularly safety for my gals out there. So I did not do the trail solo. I hiked it with my friend. She is a much faster hiker than I am. So she and I frequently didn't hike together. So even though I wasn't hiking alone, I like kind of had that experience, but you don't need to worry. It's really safe. Scotland, I've been a couple times now, is truly one of the safer places that I felt. I feel safer in Scotland than I do in Washington, D.C., which is where I am now. But yeah, I like highly, highly recommend if you are solo and thinking about doing it, absolutely do it. People hike it solo a lot. I met so many amazing women that were hiking it solo. It is very safe. I feel like you will be completely fine. And the good news about through hikes is you kind of hike with the same people each day, so you'll get to know people and you kind of have that trail community of people looking out for you, even if you're hiking alone. And everyone's really friendly. You are bound to make conversation and talk with people, and that can be really lovely. So please, please do the West Highland Way. If there are any questions that you have that I didn't answer, please put them in the chat. I respond to every single comment. And if you want to see more like in-depth day by day, I have some vlog style videos on my channel. But yeah, I love this hike, counting down the times that I can do it again and the times that I can go back to Scotland. And thank you so much for watching. I hope your week is absolutely great and I will see you soon. Bye.